My brother-in-law, as well as co-host, Eccentric Boys and Girls. I am your guiding light, your host, Iconoclast, and thank you for joining us on this week's segment of Birthright ReCap series. Have you ever heard of A4V, or acceptance for value? Ever wonder how the Vatican became so powerful? Do you know God's remedies and defenses? Or who the Pope is in collabo with? Find out right here, right now, on Beyond Ether. I like to start every show with wise words that have been quoted. And from the Book of Changes, I Ching number 49, Revolution. Revolutionary change is a period when chaos arises from order. Let's remember that not all order is good and not all chaos is bad. Chaos is often an integral part of the way things evolve. Book of Changes, I Ching number 49, Revolution. This segment of Beyond Ether's Birthright ReCap takes us back to the 1400s. The year was 1483. The government owns you and your children, brought to you by Iconoclast. Today we're going to discuss the Cestui KB Trust. There were these three Cestui KB trusts are specific denials of rights of real property, personal property, and ecclesiastical property for most men and women. That corresponds exactly to the three laws that are available to the gala of the Bar Association courts. The three Cestui KB trusts is this segment's theme. We're going to discuss the three trusts. We're going to go into the acts put in place to enforce these trusts and the acts that enforce the laws behind these trusts since the 1500s. We're going to talk about how the Vatican is involved with the deception through the live birth, the stealing of the soul through baptism. We're going to discuss debt, U.S., international, and global at a global level, as well as your inheritance, God-given. And the acts kind of govern the laws, and the Cestui K Trust acts really kind of take over the body, mind, and soul. Let's get off into Acts 1, 2, and 3, directly hidden under the claim statutes. The first act, outlining the Cestui K Trust, is deliberately hidden under the claim statutes of the reign of King Henry III in 1483, whereby the act, still in force, states that all conveyances and transfers and use of property is good, even though a purchaser may not be aware it is effectively under a Cestui KB use, subject to a Cestui KB trust. That act also gives a vague and challenged path of relief. That is, if one is a complete mind and not an infant and not under financial duress, and then any property under the Cestui BK trust is rightfully theirs and for use. The second act, outlining Cestui KB Trust, is deliberately hidden under the reign of Henry VII in 1488, which permitted lords to render any attempt by people classed as lords to demonstrate their freedom useless, and that such lords may use writs and other devices to force such people back to being compliant wards, or i.e. poor slaves. The only remedy under this act was if a ward demonstrated the waste of the lord as to the property, which really means an energy of the seized from the poor ignorant slaves. The third act, outlining the operation of the Cestui BK only hitting this time as estate pur, P-U-R. Autre V was in 1741 under whereby one who was knowledgeable of the Cestui Vs slavery system could, between the ages of 18 to 20, seek to recover such property. Under Cestui Vs, and cease to be a slave. However, the same act made law that after 20 years, the remedy for such recovery was no longer available, despite the fact that the existence of the Cestui Vs Trust is denied in Westminster and banks are sworn to lie, obstruct, hide at all costs the existence of the foundations of global banking, slavery. Let's get off into the 3 Cestui Vs trusts, which are specific, again, denials of rights of real property, personal property, and ecclesiastical property for men and women. The first trust, this first form of law is corporate. Through the first Cestui Vs trust, we get corporate law, which is commercial law. We get law for corporate, which is commercial law. This is effective because of the first Cestui Vs trust. The second form of law, maritime and trust law. And maritime and trust law is effective because of the second Cestui Vs trust. The third form of law. The third form of law is Talmudic and the Roman cult law. And it is effective because of the third Cestui Vs trust of baptism. The Cestui Vs trust basically outlines and hides the Vatican's demonic abuse of power, religion, corporate deception, internationally. Creditor versus debtor basis and foundations. Birth certificate versus your live born records. Private versus public. And it sees the foundation for all of these things. And so basically what we have through these Cestui Vs trusts are denials of rights and suspensions of equality in commerce. Now, according to Canon 2038, regarding these Cestui Vs trusts, it states in Canon 2038, in terms of the evidential history of the operation and any form of relief or remedy associated with these Cestui Vs trusts, taking into account all statutes referencing the Cestui Vs prior to the 1540s are deliberate fraud and proof of the illegitimacy of the Westminster statutes. Now, what they're saying, boys and girls, if you didn't understand Canon 2038, is that every law and statute, which is corporate law, Talmudic law, every law I had just named prior to that is deliberate fraud, okay? Because prior to 1514, there was one law, that was God's law, that was ecclesiastical law. Some call it common law, others know it as positive law. That's a whole other segment, boys and girls. Stay with me. The creation of the trust corpus. According to Canon 2040, the trust corpus created by a Cestui Vs is also known as the estate from 2 Latin words, e plus statio, literally meaning by virtue of decree, statute, or judgment. However, as the estate is held in a temporary, not permanent trust, the corporate person as beneficiary is entitled only to equitable title and the use of the property rather than legal title and therefore ownership of the property. Only the corporation, also known as body corporate, estate and trust corpus of a Cestui KB trust possesses valid legal personality. Now, thinking within myself, is this a good time to go ahead to the UCC1? Because I think it's important to know. Okay, I'm being told to go ahead and read this forward. We're going to go ahead and get through this slide. Let's get into Canon 2041. The property of any estate created through a temporary testamentary trust may be regarded as under Cestui K use by the corporate person, even if another name or description is used to define the type of trust or use. Therefore, Cestui K use is not a person, but a right, and therefore a form of property. Going back to the three trusts of what this theme as far as Cestui KB does. Canon 2042. In 1534, prior to the first Cestui KB Act, 1540, Henry VIII declared the first Cestui KB type estate with the Act of Supremacy, which created the Crown Estate. In 1604, 70 years later, James I of England modified the estate as the Crown Union of Crowns. By the 18th century, the crown was viewed as a company, i.e., company. However, by the start of the 19th century, around 1814 onwards, upon the bankruptcy of the company, so since 1581, there has been a second series of Cestui Vs estates concerning the property of persons and rights, which migrated to the United States for administration, including in 1651, the Act for the Settlement of Ireland, 1651 to 52, which introduced the concept of settlements, the enemies of the state, and the restrictions of movements in states of emergency. And in 1861, the Emergency Powers Act. And in 1931, the Emergency Relief and Construction Act. And in 2001, the Patriot Act. Now, according to Canon 2044, since 1591, there has been a third series of Cestui V estates concerning the property of soul and ecclesiastical rights, which migrated to the United States for administration, including in 1661, the Act of Settlement. Because see, first we hear it going down in other nations. Then these things migrate just like us people, just like us descendants and us in our ancestors were descendants of, migrated, or either i.e. moved or were forced, but that's a whole nother segment, boys and girls. In 1871, the District of Columbia Act, and in 1941, the Lend-Lease Act. Let's talk about the bankruptcy of the Crown and you, boys and girls. This week segments, or this segment brought to you by Iconoclast. The government owns you and your children. We're going to discuss now the bankruptcy of the Crown. According to Canon 2045, by 1815, the bankruptcy of the Crown and Bank of England by the Rothschilds, and for the first time, the Cestui KB Trust of the United Kingdom became assets placed in private banks effectively. Becoming private trust, or fide commissary trust, which I know every working United States citizen or slave, i.e. if you fall on the creditor or debit side, has seen that on their pay stub where you'll see FIDE commissary. That's a trust. That's administered by the commissioner's guardians. From 1835, the Willis Act, the Wills Act. These private trusts have been also considered secret trusts, whose existence does not need to be divulged. Let's discuss the Roman cult, aka the Vatican. In 1931, the Roman cult, also known as the Vatican, created the Bank for International Settlements for the control of claimed property of associated private central banks around the world, boys and girls. Upon deliberate bankruptcy of most countries, private central banks were installed as administrators, and the global Cestui KB foreign cities trust system was implemented from 1933 onwards. According to Canon 2048, since 1933, when a child is born in a state, which is an estate, I was born in Michigan, but it was an estate under the inferior Roman law. The three Cestui KB trusts are created upon certain presumptions specifically designed to deny the child forever any rights of real property, any rights as a free person, any rights to be known as man and woman rather than a creature or an animal, by claiming and possessing their soul or spirit. Let's wake up, boys and girls. I'm talking about children of God. The government owns you and yours. According to Canon 2049, since 1933, upon a new child being born, the executors or administrators of the higher estate willingly and knowingly convey the beneficial entitlements of the child as beneficiary into the first Cestui KB trust in the form of a registry number by registering the name, thereby also creating the corporate person and denying the child any rights as in real owner of property. Since 1933, when a child is born, the executors or administrators of the higher estate, which is the state, the trust state, the higher estate knowingly and willingly claim the baby as chattel to the estate. The slave baby contract is then created by honoring the ancient tradition of either having the ink impression of the feet of the baby onto the live birth record or a drop of his blood, as well as tricking the parents to signing the baby away through the deceitful legal means on the live birth record. This live birth record is a promissory note, boys and girls. It is then converted into a slave bond, sold to the private reserve bank of the estate, and then conveyed into the second and separate Cestui VK trust per child owned by the bank. Upon that promissory note reaching maturity and the bank being unable to seize the slave child, a maritime lien is then lawfully issued to salvage the lost property itself, monetized as currency issued in a series against the Cestui VK trust. According to Canon 2051, each Cestui VK trust created since 1933 represents one of the three crowns, representing the three claims of property of the Roman Code, aka the Vatican, being real property, personal property, and ecclesiastical property, and the denial of any rights to men and women other than those chosen as loyal members of the association and as executors and administrators. So what they saying is to be a beneficiary of your God-given inheritance, it was stolen, or rather they say given away, through the recording of the signature, the stamping of the baby feet on the birth certificate. And then the rest of the rights, because of the slavery system and the connection to the private banking system, we have these things still enforced today through Talmudic law, Rabbinic and Roman court law, through maritime and trust law, through commercial law. And all of these laws are effective because of these Cestui VK trusts. Again, according to Canon 2053, the 3 Cestui VK trusts are the specific denial of rights of real property, personal property, and ecclesiastical property for most men and women. This is around the world, boys and girls. This is nationwide. That was this segment of Beyond Ether's Birthright Recap, which took us back to the 1400s, and that year was 1483, creating the 3 Cestui KV Trust. And this segment, properly titled, The Government Owns You and Your Children. We're going to now go to the UCC1 financing statement. And good things do come to those who seek them. I am your guide in light, your host, Iconoclast. I can be viewed as an archetypal of self-sufficiency and independence and intelligence, having extremely high standards due to my many subtle sensitivities, which is taken by those around as a critical tone and or being hard to please. And my true motive is to refine the world, to upgrade people's understanding so that everyone can have the space they need to be beyond ether, become fully themselves.
UCC is abbreviation for commercial code. So legal form that a creditor files to give notice that it has or may have interest in the personal property of a debtor, or a person who owns a debt to the creditor and is typically specified in the agreement being the debt. This is powerful instrument in commercial law is also very dangerous. Once filed, it is encumbers. The process held as redemption is vast and very sweeping in country, which with notable results, both positive and negative. It's like a gun in the hand to the person with a skill towards it. But any weapon can be used against you. You don't have the capacity to weapon. So we're discussing people being themselves. As far as some person real creative, that the name that appears on the person is similar to your own. The name that appears similar to your own, but it's a little captivates the number of words. It's a trust. That trust is a person in the internal revenue code and a tax code. That person was created when your mother allowed you to sign such an instrument is a certificate of title to a business entity that exists for one and only one purpose. It was created to be collateral of the debt that can never be paid. It is an indentured servant that is bound in perpetuity from the inception to death. It has always been I will always have to pay taxes. I don't have to do anything but die and pay taxes. It's always been, always will be. The only question remains to who is it indebted? So, what are you actually doing when you file, or when someone files in CC? Making the all capital letter, which is fiction, the debtor, and upper and lowercase letters, fiction, the security party credit, or creating public notice that has two fictions identified as debtor and security party credit. Turn this back to the co-host, our columnist.
Okay, what is the birth certificate? The birth certificate is a security agreement between the state and the party, and the security agreement, when registered in a public registry system, because a claim, a lien, or a title against the body. So if your straw man estate fails to make a payment, let's say on a criminal charge, and the straw man estate is not found guilty on that criminal charge, then there is a duty, a liability, a tax against that estate to set off that charge. Since the body is the currency or the source of the currency, when they deposit the body in a physical location and the body is money, isn't the deposit of money called a bank? And so aren't prisons banks? And the prisoners in there owns a certain amount of money for which his body, through the registered security agreement, ties him into the contract. And the amount that he owes is like a certificate of deposit. It has a fixed amount, good for a fixed time, a period. And so everybody in a prison is in a bank on certificate of deposit. And that certificate of deposit, those funds, that energy is tied up for a fixed period of time, which cannot be let out into circulation. So you're kept in the prison as though you are a certificate of deposit on deposit. And what does the banks do with funding that's on deposit with these CDs? Don't they take that equity out and reinvest it and make money for profit off the reinvestment of the equity? Boys and girls, the government owns you and your children. Your body represents commercial energy. Money is the exchange, the currency which exchanges commercial energy. So the source of that which is used as money emanates in the living body. The dead body has no commercial value because it cannot, either by mind or by physical nature of the body, create and work, transport, or change any energy. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, the government owns you and your children. Children's children that are put up. That's part of the exchange of the energy. But in order to invoke the bond, it has to come from someone with authority and permission. So in reality, it is your signature of a live human body which creates that which is a commercial energy, or that which is used as the money. And that bond or instrument only has a value when the asset is pledged. So the body, the asset, is pledged. For instance, if you have a bond in the bank and it is an asset-backed bond that will trade these on the trading floor, and they will make more money out of it. But backing up that bond is an asset that is pledged. The interest in that asset is pledged. So you must pledge your interest in the property, the body, to them. And now they have an interest in it. They can float these instruments and earn more money. Now you may ask yourself, boys and girls, Where do they create the interest in your body, and how did you give it to them? Well, that's a great question, boys and girls. And you set up a trust. And what you put in and what you put it into was your birth certificate. And that's your God-given inheritance, is what I like to call it, to begin with. And then each transaction you authorize continue to go into it interest. So your birth certificate created a trust with all your commercial energy to vest in a human man of the energy of his own body, putting it into the trust. So the public, the democracy, and the private, the republic, okay? You can't give up your inalienable rights. They are always there. They're inalienable. They're God-given. The only one that can take them is God. But you can't contract them away, which is what they had you do. In this world, we have two forms of government. We got the democracy and the republic. The democracy and the republic are two forms of government which are distinguished by their treatment of the minority and the individual, and by the majority. Okay? In a democracy, the majority has unlimited power over the minority. This system of government does not provide a legal safeguard for the rights of the individual and the minority. It has been referred to as the majority over man. You can be a victim in a democracy if you don't know the rules. In a republic, the majority is limited and constrained by a written constitution which protects the rights of the individual and the minority. The purpose of a republic form of government is to control the majority and to protect the God-given, inalienable rights and liberty of the individual. The United States of America is founded as a republic under the Constitution. When they say we the people, they're not talking about individuals out there. The people out there are talking about the representatives of the state, and you can find that in the Bill of Rights. You don't consider yourself to be a United States citizen, do you? You are absolutely not a corporate citizen. The name of the state, i.e. California, you live in is your country. Now, of course, your allegiance is to Almighty God, not to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands. Good God, people. Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Your allegiance is to Almighty God. So I certainly wouldn't be doing any pledges of allegiance to the United States god dang on corporate flag, boys and girls. But everybody gets to choose to and take what they get. It is the straw man's. So when you hear me say, the commercial system, or they set up the first slavery system, or when I originally started this segment of the government owns you and your children, I talked about hitting under the claim statutes, which was the Cestui V trust. I started by saying that these trusts are the specific denial of rights of real property, personal property, and ecclesiastical property. So I said that to say that with your allegiance being to God, what is being taken under the United States, when you contract to pledge to the United States and not Almighty God, in essence, it is said that you are contracting away your God-given inheritance, boys and girls. It is the straw man's account that generates all that money. You can't, the sovereign, interact with the public. Only the straw man, the bailer, can. You're the trustee for the straw man, and you're responsible Your body, to which they hold title, is surety for the trust. Webster defines a name as a word by which a person or thing is known, a word, a speech, sound, or series of speech sound that communicates a meaning. Sovereigns, which are creditors, operate in the republic outside the democracy, without the United States. Your straw man, which is your fiction debtor, acts in the democracy. The two kinds of people in this world is debtors and creditors. And that's all, folks. You have in the context, and that's all, folks. You have heard of people making the distinction of all uppercase name and lowercase name. Well, are you either of them? No, because they are just two different forms of titles, which are fictions of identifying interest, of identifying liability, also referred to as affiliation. How many Johns and how many Davids and how many Jacks are there? In fact, in commerce, a private trust is a natural person. Look up natural person in the law dictionary, because only a natural person can contract or create a public trust. Let's go into it, good people. A person is such not because he is human, but because rights and duties are ascribed to him. The person is the legal subject of substance of which the rights and duties are attributes. An individual human being considered as having such attributes is what lawyers call a natural person. Pollock, first book of Jurisprudence, 110, Gray, Nature and Sources of Law, Chapter 2. And also persons found in the Black Law Dictionary, 4th edition, in general usage. A human being, i.e. a natural person, through by statutes term may include labor organizations, corporations, legal representatives, trustees in bankruptcy, or receivers. Private trust, according to Black Law's Dictionary, 6th edition, a private trust is one established where created for the benefit of a certain designated individual or individuals, or a known person or class of persons clearly identified or capable of identification by the terms of the instrument creating the trust, as distinguished from trust for public institutions or charitable uses. And good things do come to those who seek them. I am your guiding light, your host, Iconoclast. I can be viewed as an archetypal of self-sufficiency and independence and intelligence, having extremely high standards due to my many subtle sensitivities, which is taken by those around as a critical tone or being hard to please. And my true motive is to refine the world, to upgrade people's understanding so that everyone can have the space they need to be beyond ether, become fully themselves.
Also very dangerous. Once filed, it just encumbers. The process held as redemption is vast and very sweeping the country, which with notable results both positive and negative. It's like a gun in the hands of a person who is a skilled swordsman. But any weapon can be used against you if you don't have the capacity. So we're discussing people being themselves. Florida, person that the name that appears on the birth is similar to your own. The name that appears similar to your own, but is a little captivates the upper is trust. That trust is a person with an internal revenue. So in a textbook, that person was created. Your mother allowed you the assignment of birth certificate. Such an instrument is a certificate of title to a business entity that exists for one and only one purpose. It was created to be collateral then and to never be paid. It is an indentured servant that is bound in perpetuity from inception to dissolution. It has always been available. Hence the statement, I will always have to make taxes. I don't have to do anything but die and pay taxes. It's always been, always will be. The only question remains to who is it indebted? So what are you actually doing when you file? Someone filed in UCC. Making the all-capital letter, which is fiction, the debtor, and upper and lowercase names in fiction, the secured party credit, or creating public notice that has two fictions, identified as debtor and secured party credit. I cannot see how that is taken control of your title.
Okay, what is the birth certificate? The birth certificate is a security agreement between the state and the party, and the security agreement, when registered in a public registry system, because a claim, a lien, or a title against the body. So if your straw man estate fails to make a payment, let's say on a criminal charge, and the straw man estate is not found guilty on that criminal charge, then there is a duty, a liability, a tax against that estate to set off that charge. Since the body is the currency or the source of the currency, when they deposit the body in a physical location and the body is money, isn't the deposit of money called a bank? And so aren't prisons banks? And the prisoners in there owns a certain amount of money for which his body, through the registered security agreement, ties him into the contract. And the amount that he owes is like a certificate of deposit. It has a fixed amount, good for a fixed time, a period. And so everybody in a prison is in a bank on certificate of deposit. And that certificate of deposit, those funds, that energy is tied up for a fixed period of time, which cannot be let out into circulation. So you're kept in the prison as though you are a certificate of deposit on deposit. And what does the banks do with funding that's on deposit with these CDs? Don't they take that equity out and reinvest it and make money for profit off the reinvestment of the equity? Boys and girls, the government owns you and your children. Your body represents commercial energy. Money is the exchange, the currency which exchange commercial energy. So the source of that which is used as money emanates in the living body. The dead body has no commercial value because it cannot either by mind or by physical nature of the body create and work, transport, or change any energy. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, the government owns you and your children. Children's children. Yes, it is. Get your official seal today, boys and girls. I want to thank you for joining us this week. Beyond Ether presents Birthright Recap. I'm your host, Iconoclast. I thank you for joining me again. Stay with us, stay here. Until next time.